Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. You are about to join a frequency that will open your mind, expand your heart, and activate your spirit. Thank you for joining Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby Medium and Master Energy Therapist. Kelly believes in the power of the Spirit Baby. She speaks with babies in spirit before life, in the womb, and after life. She supports, teaches, and guides others to tune into the intuitive and mystical parts of life for greater wisdom. Join her in meeting your soul baby and build your connection and relationship with deep love and trust. Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio with your host, Spirit Baby Medium, Kelly.
Welcome to episode 133, March 4th, 2022, Intuitive Motherhood, Creating Wellness with an Energetic Model Towards a Healthy, Healing Lifestyle. Are you curious about energy modalities for you and baby? How do you welcome healing with love and support? Are you open to play with energy? What ways can ease stress and give to the heart? I have a special guest episode, and it's Heather. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Kelly. Nice to be here.
Heather Brown is an intuitive healer, doula. She weaves craniosacral therapy, Reiki, mindfulness, and other holistic modalities into her work. Heather enjoys facilitating breakthroughs and powerful transformations for individuals and families. In addition, she loves hiking with her family, meditating, and enjoying the Southern California beaches as much as possible. Welcome, welcome. And I always say, how do I meet people, right? This is always a big thing for me. And I remember in a Facebook post, it was like spiritual ladies, spiritual women of LA. I don't know the title of the group. And, things pop up in your feed. And then, there was this thing looking for healers or something. I don't even remember. And I just saw your energy called to me. And then I clicked on your website and I was like, oh, I love that energy work, especially with babies. And then I found out you were a doula like that. I didn't even see that translated at first. So I was like, of course. All that. I love the title Intuitive Healer and Doula. I do feel like our doulas are kind of, or they should be. I mean, I feel like intuitive healers. But yeah, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I do think it's interesting. I was a doula before I was knowing I was an intuitive healer, but I think, I've always been all of these things. So it's just interesting to see how it all unfolded. But definitely doulas are in that sacred space. So they're doing healing work, especially a lot of energy work, whether they realize it or not. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I want to hear more. I want to hear more about craniosacral and Reiki and how you infuse all these together and how that supports baby and mother probably too.
Yeah, absolutely. So even preconception, working with the mother-to-be and using craniosacral therapy, there's a beautiful thing within it called somato-emotional release, and it allows any of the, traumas and things that you're maybe holding in your cells of your body, your childhood, your upbringing, even your own birth trauma, to release. And so working with the mothers before they become pregnant to release those kinds of things and maybe the family patterns that they don't want to carry on as they're coming into growing their own family. So maybe they want to parent differently than they were parented. And so you can go back and do that at any point, even if you've already had your baby, but it's beautiful to do it before. And that way you can really start out grounded. And so that's like the first piece. And then working with them to kind of connect with their baby, calling in the baby, the baby spirit, all about that to come into their family and inviting them in. And then during pregnancy, that craniosacral techniques works with the fascia as well. So it'll help balance the uterus, balance the hormones as well. So if they're having trouble with ovulation or, trying to get pregnant, it will work with that. And so it's just basically getting their whole body, mind, spirit balanced and ready to grow this new life. And so that's kind of the pregnancy piece of it. Do you have any questions about that? And I can, talk more about the baby side too.
Yeah, I love, I love that. Like, I've had craniosacral before, and I'd say not in pregnancy. So I'm not familiar with that. I've had it done on me. And then I've actually had, it's chiropractic care for my son. But I love that, like, sometimes, like, especially after birth. I know that's kind of another topic, but what happens even, after birth, some births are, traumatizing, or it feels like babies get stuck or something happens. What have you found, like, in that craniosacral energy, in that space, that, like, gentle, I feel like it's such a gentle touch, especially with the newborn, right?
It's so gentle. With adults, it's 5 grams, which is the weight of like a nickel, like the coin on your hand. Mm-hmm. And with babies, it's even less. It's like 3 or less, and usually way less. So very gentle touch. And what you'll find is, as they actually, if it is a vaginal birth, as they go through the birth canal, Dr. Upledger, who founded craniosacral therapy back in the day, said that was baby's first craniosacral treatment, was traveling through the birth canal.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
So they get their first little thing. But if there's any, like you said, if they're kind of getting a little stuck, or maybe it can even be
birth,
that,
right?
Yeah, cesarean births actually shock the craniosacral system. It'd be like a diver going deep under the water. All of a sudden, it changes the pressure in the cranium, and a lot of times you can get those bones are so gentle and so delicate, and they can kind of get stuck to where they're just like jammed in a funky place, and that can cause colic. It can cause issues with latching for breastfeeding. Can cause a lot of issues, and even like ADHD, dyslexia, like those kind of things have been treated with craniosacral therapy. So treating a baby right away, you're preventing a lot of things from even happening. You won't have to deal with them because they're so easily able to shift. Like when I treat a baby, you can see their head shape change. Like it's amazing. And with an adult, it's going to take a lot longer to get those shifts because they've been holding the patterns for so long. So it's really gentle, but you're just working with it. So my favorite thing to do is while the baby, if they are breastfeeding, then while they're nursing, just putting my hands on the back of their head and doing craniosacral, a little bit of energy. It doesn't take much, and they'll just, that tissue, the fascia will start to relax. And I've seen, babies who've had trouble latching where it's actually not an issue inside the mouth. It maybe could be that in utero they were kind of in a position all crammed up and their like left hip is just really tight. And so I'm on giving energy to the left hip, doing craniosacral, and it releases, and now they have more room for their tongue to move because all the tissue is connected. And so a tight hip can mean a tight tongue, different than like a traditional tongue tie where there's actual tissue there, like extra, but you can also release and relax that somewhat, and some mild ties can be cured with craniosacral. It's all about just giving the body what it needs, just a little bit of energy. The body wants to self-correct always. It just sometimes needs a little help. So it's just helping the baby's body do what it already wanted to do in the first place, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I love that. I know people that are tuning in are like, oh, yeah, like, let's say that, there's so much energy after we give birth, and it's like, we want the best for our babies, but I like that babies are very, like, pliable or malleable, and it's interesting that you get to see, like you talking about, even the weight of the way the baby's held as compared to an adult who's, like, have, like, bowling ball heads that we have. Like, it's just so much energy and so many other things have been created. And I think it's such a beautiful gift to have babies go through craniosacral, especially with any kind of birth. I think it could be amazing, but especially if there's trauma, I feel like again, moms wanting to like not really create the first imprint of birth trauma, but it is. It's a reality. It was my reality in this lifetime, and I felt like even my son, my firstborn son, I felt like it could have been better. I'm like, so why I ran over to get him chiropractic care, and I think craniosacral would have been better, but I don't think I was fully schooled on that as of yet. But now I'm like, oh, what a beautiful, like, nice, energetic, and how you said, like, it works with the cranium, and I know you tune into the way, it moves, and like you're talking about nursing, it's like it could be done in such that delicate way, but it's also very potent, it's not like you have to get in there and like, oh, we have to like do something intense. And I remember maybe you could speak about this, I don't know, when I did infant development therapy, there was a little boy, oh, I loved him, my little boy, he had torticollis. And, nobody knows why. They're like, oh, when he was in the womb, he was like, I don't know, hunched over, and I don't know a lot about torticollis. But what I did know is he was in pain. And I really, it was very hard for me because this occupational therapist he was my boss, and he was really great. And he'd have me come in with this boy because he said, the boy's just screaming and crying. And I said, yeah, because you're trying to force his body into this infant, into a position that he doesn't like. And he literally would see him and start crying and see me and be happy. And I said, because I'm talking to his body and I'm moving in very gently and holding him in a certain way. But, and I get it. It's like, well, in his world, it's like, oh, we have to get in there. Have you seen like things like torticollis, like, and how that, how that has supported like craniosacral? I don't know if you have or not.
I have actually, yeah. And interestingly enough, my son had torticollis when he was little. And I wish I would have known. Yeah. I wish I would have known craniosacral then. I didn't. But I did kind of have my own presence. So same thing, when the occupational therapist was working with him, he would force it and he would play with him too, but like it just seemed so unpleasant. And when I would do it, I tried to do it in a more gentle way. But now, like I said, if I could go back in time, I've worked with babies with torticollis, and one thing, even with adults, so thinking about this, if you push on a muscle or push on tissue and try to force it, the body automatically resists that. It's like, what are you trying to make me do? That's not the way I'm going. That doesn't feel good. And it gets tighter. And it's actually maybe eventually going to give in and go with that forceful, thing. But if you do it really, really gently, and you almost like talk with the tissues and talk with the baby. It's like, hey, I know you're holding this pattern, but it's going to feel so much better to just release it. And you hold it. And if you think about like just holding it, and then like if you were to put beeswax in your hand, right, it's going to slowly start to soften. If you try to push that beeswax hard, cold beeswax right away, you're not getting anything. It might even break. But if you just hold it in your hands and wait, send it some energy, in this case it'd be warmth with beeswax, it's going to start to melt. And then it's going to be malleable, and it's going to shift and be able to make those changes. And again, like I said, the body wants to self-correct. It really does. It just needs that space holding. And so it's, when I'm doing craniosacral, I'm following the body. I'm coming in. This is like a really big, important thing for craniosacral therapists, that we always come in completely neutral. So our presence is neutral. We do not have an intention of our own. It's, what does the body need? We're going to show up. We're going to meld with that body and just kind of blend. And then we're going to follow its lead and give it a little energy when it needs it. Gentle nudge, but it's really following rather than forcing. And that allows the body to change faster than that forcing, because it's on board with it. It's not having to resist.
I mean, I feel like that's so is life. We're so like, oh, we got to do this, like force. And I love this like gentle unwinding, and how, the body, I love how you keep saying that. It's like the body wants to heal, like it wants to go there, and especially as infants, there's a great opportunity to then create that space of gentleness and that light touch. And even how you talked about bringing it into nursing, oh my gosh, that would have been so saving of me too. because each child, well, the first one was very hard. I always feel like that's the first one, right? And then the second one was a little bit, it was way easier, but I also felt like in the beginning it was a little tricky. And I'm like, what is this? I felt like a nursing pro, and I'm like, but then I'm like, okay, every baby's different, right? How they latch, and even the ergonomics, I don't know what you call it, like the structure of their mouth is different, and how that, and how it changes too. But I'm wondering, I know, you do Reiki, and maybe there's a piece in that too that's all in there, and I like that, again, the approach of like showing up without the agenda, and babies feel that. But let's say there's a mom, and she's feeling traumatized, maybe even depressed, and she wants to do her own Reiki or craniosacral. Maybe she has no training. What would you advise in that? What would be something loving and relaxing to do?
For the mom to do for herself, is that what you mean?
Yeah, for herself and with her baby. Yeah.
I think the first step really with the baby is going to be picking up on everything coming from the mom. And babies, before they got into their little body were these infinite beings, and now they don't really realize how limited they are in their little human body. And so they really try to help mom a lot. So I think the first thing that's beautiful to do is mom talking to baby and letting baby know, I'm going to be okay. You don't need to help me with this. And, we're in this together, but I'm going to have other things supporting me, whether that's friends or a therapist or, craniosacral, Reiki, whoever healers that she has around in family, but letting the baby know that it's not up to them. And when I do work with moms and babies, they'll be together in a session, and maybe let's say the birth was traumatic. It may have been that maybe there was a lot of fear over childbirth ahead of time. Maybe the birth actually went, medically fine, if that makes sense. Like nothing actually went wrong, but there was a lot of fear beforehand, and the baby would have felt that fear. The baby's going to kind of have that, so allowing that to release afterwards. Or if maybe the birth was traumatic for the mother because she had a fear that something was wrong, maybe the heart rate dropped, let's say. And so she's like worried about her baby, and it turns out her baby was fine. Maybe the heart rate drop was normal because that's just, where the baby was at in the birth canal. But for that mom, she had a scary experience. So as she's releasing that, I've noticed that the baby will start crying during that release. Like baby will be happy sitting with mom, or have them kind of together for the session. And then all of a sudden, as I'm feeling the energy release that mom was holding, the baby will just give out a little cry. And it's like they're releasing it together. So you're very linked with your baby. And I think recognizing that and acknowledging it with the baby that, okay, I'm going to do some work to release this, and you don't have to help me. I'm okay. And just even though you may think your baby can't understand your language, that intention and energy is there. And they understand that. They're so sensitive to energy, so sensitive. And so if you did have a very traumatic experience, I would recommend even, doing your healing work when baby is with, someone you trust, a family member, in another room, and kind of doing some self-healing and grounding first. And one thing I love is listening to sound baths or sound bowls, and you can even look them up on YouTube, and find one for the root chakra if you did have a scary birth. If you find one for the root chakra, and if you can get to a sound bath, that's even better. But even listening just on your own, on, however you want to find the file, but YouTube I know has them. And then really visualize that you are growing roots down into the ground out of your feet. You can stand and listen to it, or if you want to lay down, then just envision roots growing on your whole entire backside down into the earth and to the core while you listen to that root chakra bowl. And that root chakra is your first one. It's going to be your foundation of feeling safe and feeling nurtured and feeling stable. And so if you lost that feeling during your birth or during the pregnancy, it's going to help you fill that back up again. And that's going to make it easier to parent your baby, to care for your baby, because you're going to feel that grounding again. So that's one thing that I would definitely recommend if you've had a birth that's been a little traumatic, or even if it wasn't and you just felt really anxious during your birth or during your pregnancy. You can do it before the birth. So that's
nice.
one thing before you even go to treat your baby, because they're going to feel your energy. And so you want to take care of that, of yourself first, and then you can go and connect with them.
I remember, you're speaking a lot, I feel like, birth psychology, really, right? It's birth psychology. And I remember watching a film many years ago with Wendy McCarty, and she's very well known in the birth psychology field. It was one of the classes that was being taught, and there was this film of this little baby who was bow-legged, probably already started walking, so maybe a little bit over a year. And they were doing therapy with the mom, because the mom was bow-legged too when she was a baby. And as they were healing the mom's story, the baby literally, you physically got to see the baby's legs were unbowed. They were like coming back.
Yeah.
And it was like phenomenal, really. I wish I knew the name of the story and documentary. It was so many years ago. And I remember just like being like, whoa, this is like these infants have a lot of wisdom, and we just make it sound like they have nothing, right? This is what science has said, and they've rechanged that theory. But how the subtleness of energy, I always call it the telepathic newborn, like how there is that connection. And you make a really great point, and I think it's really helpful and healing for others to hear, is that it's like, oh, not going into the baby, like that there's something with the baby, but it's like if there's something with the baby, checking in with the mother, checking in with,
Absolutely.
with that connection. And then like again, I've seen it in that space of that that self-correcting, that natural. And of course, babies, they're going to carry our lineage, it's like passing it along, but we're so like, oh, what is that? Or I don't know. And of course with birth, like you said, I've had a friend who was like, oh, my birth felt just something was off, but it was okay. But it was like, there's energy even in that. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with the maternity system isn't very positive. There's so much drama, it feels like, all the time. Even women that are like working to hold energy, especially in a more medicalized space, it's a lot of work. It's work, And and I'm so curious to see the stats in the past 2 years of people home birthing more, and what that experience is even like, and how, I know a lot of women who would never thought they would home birth have, and they were just like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's like, again, it's like putting the power back to people to go, oh, there's options. There's not just one facility to hold the energy of birth. And I know a lot of these bigger hospitals are trying. They're trying to improve it, but it's a hospital. I almost feel like, unless they have like baby hospitals, and that'd be great, like just where babies are, no sick people, no diseases, because that energy alone of sickness and disease, it's like, why are we grouping them together? Human life is so precious and miraculous. It's like they should have and there's enough babies being born where they can get their own little sacred building. I don't know, that's my fantasy.
That would be lovely. I remember, when I was attending births a lot. I don't attend a lot of births anymore, but when I did, going into the elevator, and the maternity floor was, I think, the 6th floor, So I had to go through, and the energy just in that elevator is like, whoa, because you have people who are grieving, you have people who are scared, you have like all these stories coming through that elevator, and that's the elevator that every pregnant woman was traveling in to get to her birth when she was in labor. And so, it's a lot. And so that would be beautiful if they had their own.
I know, right?
Space. And
I dream about that for years.
Birth center, I guess. But,
I know, a birth center, but some people get nervous even about what kind. I don't know. I mean, I think birth centers are very, they're not over medicalized, but they're very good birth centers that have, good medical care if needed. And so maybe that's
but
what
yeah,
it is.
having
maybe
a hospital for if you did need to have a surgical birth, then having something dedicated, that would be lovely. Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of shift over. We're talking about energy healing, and Reiki. And so I know that you do Reiki, you offer Reiki. And so your doulaing activities, or whatever your description is, birth doula. Are you postpartum doula or full spectrum? I can't remember.
I mostly do birth. I am a postpartum doula, but my postpartum doula work looks very different than other. I go in and do more of energy work with mom and baby postpartum. So, I'm happy to warm up food, but I'm not cooking because I'm mainly focusing on the energy piece of it. Yeah. So when I do doula work and doing that energy work in there, it's helping basically, the same thing, like finding that balance between mom and baby's energy, and if there's a partner, then the partner as well, and just getting the whole entire family like energetically balanced, because you can see like one person can be bringing in something into that energy field that maybe they don't even know they're holding it, and they're sleep deprived. And so, being able to balance everybody's energy together, it's beautiful. And one really cool thing, so when I'm doing craniosacral, I also am using Reiki energy. And so if there's ever something kind of stuck with the tissues or anything like that, I'll send a little bit of Reiki in there. So I'm tuning into the craniosacral rhythm, which is like your body has like a pulse with your blood. You can feel your pulse. You have cerebral spinal fluid around your brain and down your spine, and that also has a pulse. And so I'm feeling that pulse, and I'll feel it in mom, baby, and partner. And what's beautiful is as I'm working with them together, I'm also tuning into their chakra energy and the flow of all of their energetic system. And by the end of the session, they're all synced up. The baby's craniosacral rhythm is a little bit a different rate than the adult, but it's like an orchestra. Like they're all just playing beautifully together, and the chakras are moving, and they're just very much aligned. And so it can be a beautiful thing for families to do. So I do a lot of that, and I do less official doula work. I used to attend births in the hospital a lot, and now I actually train doulas for Birth Arts International. And so I do more teaching than I do attending births. And here in the LA area, there's so many doulas, so I'm happy to refer families to other doulas. So they may work with me prenatally and, postpartum, but they will have somebody else attend their birth. At this point, I'm just not actively doing that right now.
I really enjoyed looking at all your trainings, because I was looking at your website and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of curious things in there. I was like, there's a lot of energy stuff, I love how, you're bringing that kind of, in the birth space, it is a very sacred space, and even who's in that space. This is why I tell people, I actually tell a lot of the women that I work with, when they get to that level of pregnancy, you have a doula. Because to me, it's almost mandatory, to be honest, especially if you're going into a hospital. Because you need that companion, that feminine energy. It could be masculine too, but you need that like space holder, that person that's in your bubble. And I've heard amazing stories of advocacy from doulas based on that individual wanting to a certain, unwinding of the birth experience. Or if there's too many people in the room, it's like, hey, excuse me, you need to go or whatever. I know that could be very confrontational, but it's like, it's hard to birth when there's all these people and all this energy. Like you said, people have their baggage or their mental energy, and it's like bringing that in. And for me, my first birth was a home birth transfer, which was not good. That's a long story. But my second was at home, and it was so beautiful. The people that were in the space were very important to me. And even my best friend was able to be in the space, and she was like one of the midwives in this room and the apprentice midwife. It was like, but I did notice that like my husband at one point came to me in the middle of labor, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's anxious. Get him away from me. Because I could feel that energy. And I was like, I felt like, because then what happens, I feel like as birthing mothers here, we're like, we want to take care of everybody unconsciously. And like, oh, somebody in the family's uneasy because they're just nervous and they have to process it. And my dearest friend and apprentice and now midwife, she was like, I'll be your doula. I was like, okay. And then I said, well, how did it go? And she's like, well, I didn't really have to doula you. You were just kind of doing your thing. And I said, but I loved that she was there and she talked to me and my partner in a way that felt like I don't have to take care of them. That's what it felt like. Even just knowing that is like, oh, I could melt inward. Because I know a lot of women will say, oh, we're going to be fine. I have my husband. I go, don't do that. I'm just straight up. I'm like, don't be like my husband's my doula crap. I'm like, I can't. That's a lot of pressure. And I get it. If you want that birth without the doula, that's fine. But when I hear the stories after, that's like, crap, I should have had the doula. And I was like, I told you like why it is important. It's just not fair because everybody's having their own birth experience, right? And having that person come in and just be that kind of, force field of energy, I do feel is important. And what I'm noticing especially in LA, like in this area, when I used to go, oh my gosh, like probably 8 years ago, I used to be part of all these cedar cyanide birth professional groups. And, I'd hear stories from a lot of doulas, and a lot of the doulas, I was so happy to hear, a lot of them are trained in Reiki, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. Do you offer that in your training as a doula?
I do. Yeah, I do.
This is great. I love that.
Mm-hmm. It's so magical when they have that because one, they can use it on themselves to stay really grounded and clear their energy before they even show up at the birth. And then using it in labor, it's great. Like I've even been able to use Reiki instead of Pitocin at a birth that was kind of slowing down. And they, were like, she'd been in labor for at least 15, 16 hours, and she was just kind of tired. And so things were slowed down, and they were like, well, we'd like to do Pitocin. And so she asked if she could have, more time, basically. And so they're like, well, we'll give you an hour, and then we're going to come back in and talk. And, of course, she can always just, if you're given the option or told Pitocin, you always can decline it. But she was like, okay, I'll take the hour and we'll see. And so she was so tired. Sometimes you can do walking around to try to get contractions going or sitting on a birth ball and kind of rocking, but she was exhausted. And so I said, just rest. And I just did Reiki with her, and her contractions picked back up, got a really good rhythm, and she did not have to have any, augmentation with drugs. She was able to give birth vaginally like she wanted. And it was just really cool to see that just being able for her to tap into that Reiki energy gave her the boost that her body needed to then continue laboring. So it can be a really cool tool for sure. And, it's really good for when doulas have it in their tool belt to be able to help. Like I will do it at every prenatal. We'll do the normal, let's talk about what you want for your birth, let's talk about birth positions, all the talking stuff, and then we end the session with them laying in their bed, and I just do a whole full Reiki session, just balancing their energy, helping calm any anxiety, really bringing relaxation to them. And I also am treating the baby at the same time, while they're pregnant, so everybody gets a treatment, and if their partner wants the treatment too, we do the whole family. And so that can be a beautiful thing that doulas can bring in. And then I also teach, people who aren't doulas how to do Reiki. So I do have moms who want to learn to do it so they can share it with their baby and with their family. And like I was saying with the doula, we start with the person who's going to be giving the care. The first level of Reiki is all about self-care and self-love, and so they treat themselves first, and then they can share it with their family and their friends and babies.
I love this because I was just teaching in co-creation. We're in a week where it's all about energy healing, energy medicine, using, I call it similar to a Reiki for conception energy, and just being with the frequency of the self and the ability to have that stream of energy that's always there, right? It's our mental stuff that really gets in the way. And
yes.
I love that you're teaching it too, because I was just saying, if you need a teacher, come ask me and I'll put my radars out. Now I'm like, oh wait, it's Heather. Because some people will ask, like, hey, I want to learn Reiki, and a lot of them know it's like, oh, there's so many people teaching it, but some people I know are not teaching it or taking breaks or having babies or, doing things. I'm like, but I said, if you really want, because I always tell people that work in my programs, learn Reiki and learn an energy modality, because it'll be really helpful on the conception journey, especially if it's been a struggle. And, being able to create that relationship with how energy moves, and to be, I just feel like it adds to the space. And I like that you do that too, because I'm thinking, oh, maybe you just do doula and Reiki work, but you do also teach, Reiki to the family. I like that to everybody, and it just makes me feel dreamy. I'm like, oh, that must feel so good. Like, and I tell people, like, how you experience it from somebody hands-on. I call it hands-on healing. It's important, I feel like, to know that, that connection, and then just not on yourself, but like, different experiences with having someone hold the energy with you and then doing it on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I was teaching in person only, and when the pandemic started, I was like, well, I do distance work with Reiki. Can I teach distance Reiki? And so I started teaching it also at a distance, but I teach it live, so I do like a live class, and then what I will do after that is a one-on-one with the people. So I'll call them on the phone and I connect with their energy. Just like when I do distance sessions with families, I'm on the phone with them, or with individuals on the phone with them, and we go through each chakra and see what they feel. And so I do that attunement with them. And so then when they're learning how to do it, they also get to experience what that feels like with me there, with, helping them, and then finding their own. And there's a 21-day attunement time where their body's really shifting, their energy is shifting into this new vibration and connecting with Reiki. And so during that, ideally they would be meditating and doing Reiki on themselves every day and journaling. And personally, when I did that for me, when I went through my training, it was like an amazing self-discovery time. And it was just like, I didn't necessarily spend a long time each day, but every time I did it, I like learned something new or released something, and it just like became more and more healing in that process of that 21-day attunement. And so I'd like to stick with my students and even follow up with them after the 21 days, because if I just teach them and then like there they go, they may have some questions, and what was that? And also I've found that a lot of people will kind of go, oh, I don't really need to do the attunement. And I'm like, no, you're going to get so much more out of it if you go through the process actively, with treating yourself every day and with journaling. And it's a beautiful process, and then it allows them to feel more confident. So when they do treat their baby or even like their pets, it can be even more impactful because they know what that experience is like for them.
Yeah, that's so nice to be able to, the follow through, because the questions and things that come up, and most of the people I work with long distance anyway, so it's like everything's long distance, and it's nice because it's energetic. And because people do ask that, like I said, I always tell people it's really great to do it in person and feel that connection in a room with a human being. But like you can do things, I've done a lot of energy work for myself and others. I don't do it anymore like for others, but to receive it too, like for years, like long distance, I was like, it feels like in person, really, if you get somebody that really is, connected and available in that way, of course. And so I like that. There's so many different ways to continue to learn and move through it. And I know you bring meditation into the space. You bring, which, I felt like you were kind of going into a meditative example earlier, which was really nice. I was like, using sound in birth. I was like, oh yeah, like after birth. I was like, God, that would have helped me out. Where was Heather? Oh, like that makes sense because it's so like with sound, you don't have to like, I know after birth and I had postpartum depression like full on, and it was like, it would be nice just to sit there and listen to something, and just do something really basic, nothing that required so much from me, and to let that be like the healing, let that healing, kind of just, backtracking what you said earlier about that sound piece in there because it's vibrational, right? And
it's so powerful. I mean, because the sound frequency, especially if you're getting the bowls that are tuned to the frequency of the chakra, because it'll resonate. So just like if you were in a music store and you pluck like an F note on a guitar, all the other F notes are going to start vibrating a little bit and getting in tune. So when you're just laying there, you don't have to mentally think, you don't have to process, you don't have to talk about it. You can just lay there and let the notes balance your system, because your body, your energy body will start resonating with that bowl and will balance. And it's beautiful, and it's so perfect for postpartum because you don't want to have to do a lot. You're so tired anyway.
Yes, exactly.
If you fall asleep, like if you fall asleep during the process, that's okay because your body's
still happening. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so sound baths are still amazing. It's the best when you don't want to talk and you just want to kind of lay there.
But I do what you're talking about too. I'll go on YouTube and there's this one that's called like 3-hour live crystal singing bowl thing, and I always put that on, and sometimes it's intense for me. Sometimes I'm like, I just can't. It's really interesting. It's like my body's like, oh, maybe I should put something else on, and I'm always very curious. But I also have singing bowls. I have a second chakra bowl, and I was just gifted the throat one, and when they play together, you're getting me excited. I may play them later. They bounce sounds off of each other that are so different. And then if there's people in the room, depending on the person's own energy field, it creates a different sound. It's just so incredible to be like in the mystery of it, not trying to diagnose or figure it out too much. It's just like everybody feels it. It's something's changing, and it's a sound that's just, and I do know it's really just connecting with other people's, presence. And that's so helpful and healing. I feel like we talk about energy. It's like we're taking the little energy trip here from the craniosacral to the Reiki meditation to sound. It's like really unlimited. And I don't know if you know this, but last I knew, I heard there's over 1,000, 600 to 1,000 or more of energy modalities now.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that. It doesn't quite surprise me because I feel like
I know, right?
It's in everything. Like, I mean, I use sound in my work too. It's like all of it is getting us deeper, and there's so many ways to bring in healing. And I think it's great that there's so many, because the other thing is, like you said, maybe that day the sound is like too much for you. And so maybe, Reiki is better that day, or it's where you're at, or, you have some people who can't sit in meditation, but then of course there's many styles of meditation. You can go for a walking meditation, but it's like as diverse as we all are as human beings, there's going to be something that's going to resonate with us, that's going to feel good, that we can do to bring ourselves more healing and more balance. So I love that there's so many modalities, and it's like I love learning new things too, so I'm always like, ooh, what's this one? For sure.
So, Heather, I'd love to hear, ways that people can contact you, your website, email, or Instagram, whatever it is that you share, and any upcoming things that you want to share.
So the best way to get a hold of me is my website, and that is heatherbrown.com, but it's spelled HeatherBrown.com. And my Instagram handle is also Heather Brown. So again, with the IR and the Heather. So Heather Brown is the Instagram handle. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And then if you're interested in the doula training part, I have another website for that, but it links from the heatherbrown.com. And you're welcome to email me if you have any questions. There's a link on my website to email me or send me a DM on Instagram. And then I do have some things coming up in end of April, 1st of May, I'm going to be actually traveling to Eugene, Oregon, and I'm going to be doing a doula training that's going to be very integrated in, I'm going to be teaching some Reiki and also doing a traditional Birth Arts International doula training on the last day for people who want to become a certified doula. But the first 2 days we're going to do healing circles. I'm going to teach everybody how to do a craniosacral still point on themselves, and the still point is the part where it brings your body into balance and into that self-healing place. And so I'm going to teach how to palpate the rhythm and do a still point and how to do Reiki. And then I also will be having an online Reiki class coming up. I don't have the date officially set, but it's going to be in spring. So if you're interested in any of that, you can contact my website. And then I do distance healing sessions for individuals and families. So if you're ever interested in that, again, my website is the place to go. And I would love to even do discovery calls if you're just curious. I love talking about this. So you can always book a discovery call, and there's no obligations. It's just let's chat.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Heather, for sharing all this amazing work that you do to be of service for conception, pregnancy, and probably even birth loss scenario. We didn't touch on that topic, which is fine. But thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it was lovely to be here. It's great spending some time with you, Kelly. And yeah. Thank you.
And I want to thank everybody for joining episode 133, Intuitive Motherhood, Creating Wellness with an Energetic Model Towards a Healthy, Healing Lifestyle. And of course, please come subscribe, leave reviews on this podcast, and check out my book, a journal. It's a journal. It's called Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby journal. And of course, Spirit Baby Oracle cards, answers from Spirit Baby are still currently not available yet, but they will be hopefully in spring. We'll see how that goes. Thank you again for joining.
This is Spirit Baby Radio. Thank you for joining Kelly in the energy of awareness, love, healing, and soul communication. Please join the next episode at www.soulbabycommunication.com.